check out All Elite Podcast.
We are the Lucha Brothers, and you listen All Elite Podcast.
You know why? Hey, this is Cole Cabana. Check out the All Elite Podcast. All Elite.
This is Sammy Guevara, the best ever. And you, yes, you, need to go check out All Elite Podcast.
What's up, man? It's the Afro Machine, the Wolverine, Mr. GMSI himself, the man with the huge effort arms, Brian Cage. You're watching the All Elite Podcast. Who better?
Welcome back, All Elite family, to another exciting edition of the All Elite Podcast. As always, I'm your host, All Elite Andy, and I'm joined by my boy, Big Match AJ. We are fresh off of another exciting episode of Dynamite. Maybe not super fresh, we're a day off of another exciting episode of Dynamite, the go-home show before the pay-per-view. I'm super excited for the pay-per-view, and Dynamite itself was pretty fun. We've got some exciting stuff to talk about, but before we jump into everything, AJ, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Same old with me, except my air conditioner is broken. I had to work on that all day, which was super
First world
fun.
Problems. This guy's complaining about his air conditioner on
I wish I
November
lived in
the
South
5th.
Dakota where it was freezing.
Oh, wow. I wish I lived where you live, where it is not freezing, my friend. So, yeah, in the middle of all the craziness that the world has going on, I was very excited to watch Dynamite this week, but outside of that, I don't really have a whole lot new to speak on either. Like AJ, just kind of the same old school stuff. Like everyone else, kind of dealing with the whole political spectrum that's going on.
Yeah.
But otherwise, nothing too crazy. But Dynamite, like I said, was a lot of fun to get to sit down and watch and sort of not deal with the whole stress of what's going on in politics and whatnot. So that was fun. Let's talk about some news that AEW had come out on social media. This one was one that I thought was really interesting. They announced a game. They have a Twitter handle for AEW Games. They're talking about subscribe and follow, and they're going to make an announcement on November 10th. AJ, what are your thoughts?
Dude, I'm so fucking hyped for this. I've been ready for a good wrestling game for a while now, and Fire Pro is good, but it's not like a cool 3D ass wrestling game.
Yeah, I don't want to get my hopes too high up because I'm with you there. Like, we came up together as best buds playing WWE 2K games and stuff like that. So if we got a good game to play, I think that we'd be right there with everybody else ready to play it. So I'm excited. I just don't know what to expect. You know, what kind of game are they going to come out with here? Is it going to be like a next generation game because they got the new systems coming out? Is it going to be like a handheld game? I could totally see them doing some mobile game on the cell phone as a first thing. I could see them even going like the fantasy route that they had talked about early on. Tony Khan had really wanted to get into something like that, so AEW games could be that as well.
Yeah, definitely. The door's open for them to really announce anything, and they're going to announce something on Tuesday.
Yeah, so I'm stoked, and that's kind of all that there was. It was an announcement about an announcement, but the fact that it's related to AEW games was enough to get people buzzing, and I'm definitely buzzing on it because I'm super excited. Like you said, a good wrestling game, a solid wrestling game, and AEW has been working on it since the beginning. We're past a year in, so it would make sense that we're finally getting an announcement. Now, who knows how long an actual game will take to come to fruition after that, but I am so stoked for that. Another interesting news note that I want to talk about before we talk about the ratings is this Matt Jackson injury that you sent me a news note about this today. I was very stunned to see this. Even more stunned to continue reading about the injury Matt has apparently had since July, but people are worried he might not make it to full gear. What are your thoughts, AJ? Like, I don't think that there's a chance he's going to miss the pay-per-view if he's been wrestling since July, but I guess.
Yeah, I really hope that, for all intents and purposes, the injury isn't so far like out of the realm of him being able to wrestle that they have to call the match off. I mean, they haven't indicated that that's going to happen at all on social media today. They haven't posted anything about it. So it seems like the match is still on. I would imagine if it's not, we'll find out in the next coming few days. But as of right now, I'm just going to hope for the best for him.
And that in and of itself would be sort of strange for AEW, don't you think, to call off, to sit here and call off a match that they've built up this much. I don't feel like they're the type to build up literally a dream tag team match between two of the top tag teams in all of professional wrestling, and all of a sudden we're going to get a situation where they're going to bait and switch us at the pay-per-view. I'm not buying that, you know? I have too much faith
I
in this
mean-
company. I've appreciated basically them. They've kept it real for pay-per-views especially. So for me as a fan, I'm not buying into that. I think it's very strange that Meltzer apparently reported this. It hinted, at least and it's not like he said that he wouldn't be in the match, but hinted at a possibility that Matt Jackson might not wrestle at the pay-per-view. I think that's silly speculation, man. I don't think they're going to do all of this as a company, honestly. In terms of like, and I get it, we've talked about WWE PTSD plenty of times before on this podcast, but in terms of honestly having faith in this company and the way that they book things and the way they tell stories, I can at least say I don't think this is going to happen, and I hope Matt is totally fine. And maybe he reignited the injury, or it got a lot worse during Dynamite. But what can you do? You know what I mean? So in terms of, but again, if that had happened, I think that they would have come clear about it relatively quickly. It wouldn't be a situation where we're waiting until Friday to tell people. So based just on that, it has me confident that I really think that Matt will be a part of the pay-per-view, and it's going to be a great match.
Yeah, I would hope so. If all goes well, I mean, I don't want him to risk his health or anything, but if he's had this since July, then hopefully that's not the case.
Well, yeah, that's kind of where I was getting at, too, is with myself, is like, all right, let me back off a little bit, because I do have faith in the company, but obviously don't want him to work through an injury that's going to get that bad. But again, they've gone this far, they've pushed it this far, and obviously done a well enough job at not even really letting people know about the injury, so solid on that part. Something else I thought was pretty solid, honestly, all things considered. AEW pulling 717,000 fans for yesterday's episode, up against the political race and all of the things dominating the news networks. If you looked at the ratings at all today, you saw literally CNN for like 10, and then Fox, and all of the networks that are covering the election that we aren't covering. So, but still, AEW does a pretty consistent number leading into the pay-per-view. The pay-per-view is obviously going to be exciting. We'll get another high number next week. NXT clearly only pulled the strong number for their special, and that's it.
Yeah, it does go to show you how loyal the fan bases are, that they're still going out of their way to catch these shows. These are strong numbers, considering what they're up against.
I agree to an extent, because at that point on Wednesday, I was so drained of the politics and stuff that I needed something else to watch. So it was almost nice to have that reprieve to get away to. So but I do agree. Like it does also show the loyalty of the fan base to still tune in to what's going on. But I think for most AEW fans, even if they were paying attention to the election all day yesterday, like we were, it was so nice to just sort of step away for a couple hours and then just once again flood myself back into what was going on. But yeah, so I'm not too surprised to see the number be pretty steady, because I think that if you're a fan of AEW, that was your outlet last night to get away from all of the drama and all of the shit that's going on in the world. AEW delivered a solid show, so I'm not too surprised. And like I said, leading into the pay-per-view, it makes all the sense in the world. Let's go ahead and talk about Dynamite, though, now that we're on the point of it. Dynamite opens with Chris Jericho. He just does a short interview with Dasha. Gets interrupted by MJF, who says that he's glad that he's doing commentary because he's going to get a front row seat to see just how good MJF is. Jericho says that he doesn't think that Max has a killer instinct and thinks he's actually a little soft, and MJF tells him just to watch. Jericho goes on to join the commentary team. We get MJF and Wardlow picking up the victory to start the show. What did you think of all of this, AJ? The little MJF, the match itself, and the interaction prior and before?
I thought it was interesting. I thought good, because at first I was like, why is Jericho on commentary? And that was made very clear. I had forgotten about this match entirely. So I thought this was a pretty cool move. I thought the promo was a good move, good way to set up the match and make it a little heated. And post match when he attacked him, it was very cool because you get like MJF's killer instinct, like trying to prove something to him, and you saw Jericho smiling about it.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. And I think that in terms of the whole Jericho being on commentary thing, I was kind of there with you, but at the same time, I just kind of lend it to the idea of Jericho wants to do commentary after AEW, so there will just constantly be weeks like this where he's randomly there. But at the same time, of course, incorporated in with what's going on, so that makes sense. And the match itself was all right with MJF and Wardlow. I think that both, they delivered as a tag team. They've continued to deliver on this story, and then obviously bringing Matt Hardy in at the end of the match. And I thought that was interesting because it made it perfect to transition to the situation with MJF and Jericho. So while it seems like there's a lot going on paper, the way that they delivered it made sense, and they were able to tell a couple stories all at once in there.
Yeah, definitely. A lot was going on, a lot happened, and it was all in a pretty short period of time, which is what you want, I guess, for your go-home show, is to get as much in as you can.
Yes, I agree. So and it was a solid move there. And post match with MJF attacking Jericho, I thought that was genius. I thought it was so much fun to really build on that feud and have these two kind of have such a strange situation going on, because Jericho obviously not even that upset about it. Instead, that's kind of the killer instinct that Jericho was looking for, MJF proving it to him. So it's very cool the way that this is being done, because it's different. It's not necessarily what you would expect, and in that I enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely.
And something that's kind of been done the traditional way, they say that if Kingston and Moxley have any physical contact in the ring tonight, that their match will be called off. And then we go to I always mix up Tony's. Tony Schiavone, he is in Kenny Omega's home. Well, Kenny Omega's temporary home. He actually talks about how he's relocated to Jacksonville to take this final match in the tournament very seriously. This promo between Kenny and Tony was actually really good in explaining the tournament and explaining the seriousness that Kenny took to it. I honestly totally didn't realize for some reason that Kenny faced two replacements in both of his matches.
Yeah, me neither.
So them making a point to explain that was kind of cool. Like, it's just happened to be how things worked out, but it helps tell the story even more. And they did a good job at helping fund. Like, we're probably not the only ones who didn't recognize that. You know what I mean? So AEW kind of had to spoon feed it to us, but that made it that much better, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I totally didn't realize that either. It went way over my head. And so for him to be like, I had to face against opponents who I was unprepared to fight, like, it made that more interesting. Like, oh, damn, yeah, he did.
And then there was a really solid line in there where Kenny asked Tony if he was a betting man, who would you bet on? And it's true. Tony says it's hard not to bet on Kenny Omega. So they did a really good job setting the tone for this match that they have set up. And what a wonderful match it is. The build for it has been fantastic, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too, man. Hangman versus Kenny, probably going to steal the show on Saturday, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I have to agree with you there, especially with the unfortunate circumstance of Matt Jackson being a little banged up going into that match.
Yeah.
It makes it a little bit easier almost to say that Kenny and Hangman will steal the show. And they've done it in building it up in a way where they didn't have to go, they turned on each other. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And turns out later on in the show, they still kind of stick together a little bit. We'll talk about it. The next match, though, we have Miro picking up a win over Trent in Miro's singles debut. I thought that this was a solid match. One thing I thought during this match was, thank God they've done something with Trent to make him legitimate throughout our tenure with AEW. Sometimes we almost question it, or we poke fun at Tony Khan a little bit because he's a Trent is a Tony Khan guy. But it turns out like it works out, because when you bring in a new face, beating Trent... Hold on. Well, beating Trent is just traditionally not the best thing, but what do you think of the match, AJ?
I thought it was a great match. It really showcased Miro, really gave him somebody who was a substantial opponent, is what the best way I could put it. Somebody who you can really bring the best out of both guys, make them go really hard, make it like maybe Miro loses and that brings the angle somewhere, and maybe Miro wins and that brings the angle somewhere. I expected Miro to win just because, he's the fresher face to the company and he's like a big, strong guy. You want him to keep looking like a big, strong guy. But it made me interested in where this feud is going to go and where it's heading and how they've been handling it. I don't like that it's always about Trent's mom, but other than that, I'm super into it.
Yeah, I do agree with you in that sense to an extent. That is kind of goofy. It fits the whole goofy aspect of it, but yeah, it's not the best situation there. I thought again, just they because throughout the match I figured Miro was going to win. They kept saying it's his singles debut. It's Miro's first singles match. But honestly, the way that they've built up Trent, I wasn't totally sold. You know what I mean? Because Trent is such a strong singles competitor, has had good matches against good wrestlers, that I had a little bit of belief that he could give Miro a run for his money, and it added to the match a little bit as well. We obviously had Kip and Chuck Taylor get involved in this one, building up that feud, and Orange Cassidy doing a dive onto them. So it's good. They're continuing to build up the situation. I felt like they made this match important leading into the pay-per-view without having to make it a pay-per-view match or like a pre-show match even.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more there. Because I really did think for a while it was going to be a pay-per-view or pre-show match, and the fact that they didn't do that kind of, I like it more because you can give time to like fertilize and really like nurture this feud and make it something good instead of just rushing it to the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that it's and Trent and the Best Friends are a great fit at these like middle, like filler storyline situations. You know what I mean? So I think that it's a solid situation they've built up here. It's a good little mid-level storyline that doesn't need to be finished off at a pay-per-view, but gives people something to look forward to after the pay-per-view even. So
yeah.
We get another interview segment hyping up the pay-per-view, this time Jim Ross backstage with Hangman Page. Hangman talking about how he feels good about facing Kenny Omega. He says he's going to whoop his ass. But Jim Ross calls him out. He says he's a little bit nervous and asks him if he is. And Hangman says, yeah, he's nervous. Who doesn't get nervous going out there is probably a liar if they tell you different. He says Saturday's the closest he's been to the championship since he first got a chance at it. And one thing I thought was telling is in the middle of his promo, he talks about how everyone said he didn't deserve it and he shouldn't win. And he didn't win, so maybe they were right. And he talks about how if he doesn't win, all he's got left is his glass of whiskey, and it's a good glass of whiskey. And Jim Ross ends it off really well, telling him that he needs to take it in moderation. So a good promo here, honestly, setting up Hangman and Kenny Omega once again in a really solid way. So
really strong, especially what we're going to talk about later on in the show. What Hangman does, a lot of interweaving stories being told and at the same time, and it's really interesting how they're playing this all out. Couldn't agree more. This was a good Jim Ross interview. I like that he called out Hangman on being nervous. I like that Hangman did seem jittery, did seem nervous, did seem anxious. I'm enjoying this whole feud, man. I can't tell you much more than that. It's been going, like, it's been building for a year, and we're finally going to get the payoff. Well, a payoff. I don't even know if it's going to be the payoff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I don't expect it being the payoff either. Let's go ahead and talk about... I don't know. I don't think it'll be the payoff. I think it'll be a solid match. So after that, we get a hype video for FTR versus the Young Bucks. What do you think of the hype video, AJ? Anything special?
No. I mean, it did exactly what it was supposed to. You know, it hyped me up for the match. But other than that, not really. Nothing.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. The hype video didn't do a whole lot for me either. After that, we get Taz. He comes out and cuts a decent little promo talking about how Will Hobbs needs to let them know his situation, which is weird to me. I think the Will Hobbs situation
super weird.
has explained itself. He obviously wants nothing to do with you, bro. But they talk more about Ricky Starks not being involved in the pay-per-view, Brian Cage not being involved in the pay-per-view, but does say that there will be an FTW presence at the pay-per-view. So I'm almost wondering if whoever is joining AEW, because they've hinted at that through some commercials about the pay-per-view,
they have.
that person might be someone who joins Taz's little group. So I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, a moth flew at me. Yeah, it was definitely good. Like, I'm kind of excited because I think Brian Cage is ranked really high. Ricky Starks is unranked, even though he has a great record. So I like that Taz brought all this to the table and like said, "Hey, look, this is fucked up. This isn't right." And AEW needs to do something about it, and we will be at the pay-per-view whether you like it or not. I want to see what's going to happen at the pay-per-view with Team FTW and how they're going to slide in there.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea. I imagine it'll be them attacking, and maybe they'll be attacking someone, and that'll be where we get to debut. But I just think that it's definitely going to be something involved with that. But it's cool to see that they are keeping them an important presence on the pay-per-view card, despite not having a match. I think that it's a very interesting way to do it, and with such a stacked card, it does keep them important. So.
Yeah.
And before we get the Young Bucks taking on Private Party, Sammy Guevara attacks Matt Hardy, just getting revenge for the situation earlier on in the night. So they've continued to build up this feud, but it's so quick and like here it is and there it goes and that's it. It's just a quick attack and not really. I don't care about this feud, I guess, is the best way I could put it. Like there's just no reason to care because all they do is beat each other up for no reason and try and attack each other for no reason. Maybe if Sammy didn't throw his hands up when Matt threw the chair at his face, but
yeah.
I totally understand throwing your hands up for that one, bro, but it's really not a fair trade-off when you launched a chair at his face and he did not put his hands up. That's all I'm saying, Sammy.
It was a little awkward, yeah, but the match itself was really good. Private Party versus Young Bucks delivered again as a really top quality match. These guys have so much chemistry with each other.
Where I was in my reading of the Matt Jackson situation, I'm like, how is he possibly injured when he just had another great match with Private Party? But nonetheless,
yeah, it was a fantastic match. They really killed it. They were hitting all their big moves. They hit the gin and juice. They went for the shooting star press. Meltzer driver got teased a whole bunch, and it was just really because I was wondering the first time Young Bucks and Private Party had that really great match. I was like, I wonder if that was just luck, but no, it definitely wasn't. Private Party has something to offer.
Yeah, I think they've got some legitimate chemistry there between these two teams, and I agree. Private Party has something to offer. Might just be with the right tag teams, the right competitors, but they're definitely growing on me, and this was a solid bounce back, especially after last week, I think it was, that injury happened. This is a much better showing for them, obviously. It might have been a couple weeks ago now, but nonetheless. Post-match, FTR attack the Young Bucks. They go to Pillmanize Matt Jackson again, but Hangman is the first one to make the save. Kenny Omega comes out a couple minutes later. FTR clears the ring. Hangman and Kenny stare down. So again, just building storylines together. It's cool because it's all in the same world, man. It's not like we're pretending this fight is in this world and it's all in the same world. It all makes sense, and it just makes sense. The one thing I thought was cool too is Hangman was the first one out, not Kenny.
Yep, I love that. I love the fact that Hangman was the one to come out first. Kenny lagged behind. I love that they fist bumped and then Hangman was like, "Don't turn your back on me," though, and got pissed at him and got all in his nose. And really just subtle storytelling, but really well done. Maybe that's why they got rid of Matt Hardy, to make this more open-ended.
Yeah, I mean, and that makes sense. But overall, I think that this was solid. And you're probably right, honestly, to make it more open-ended while keeping him with Private Party. So, yeah, this was really good. Continuing to build storylines the way AEW does is just fantastic. So, and we continue to build the main event storyline in the company with Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley coming out to the ring, cutting a long promo on each other. And it kind of depends on how you look at it. I guess I didn't think this was bad, but it wasn't the best. I thought there was
really. I love this.
I think it's honestly maybe the lack of crowd, and because there is obviously a crowd reaction, but not what you would expect from something this heavy. So when it's this heavy and these guys are just going back and forth, you need and they can't physically attack each other. I think they were just too calm with each other. You know what I mean?
I hear that, yeah.
Because what they were saying was aggressive, and they were aggressive, in their tone, but and you can't because of the storyline, but maybe they just shouldn't have been in the ring together. And when Eddie just left, it was kind of strange to me. I totally got all of it, but it was just strange.
I liked it. I thought the not being able to hit each other, good move, because you don't want to just end in a pull apart brawl, which is what you would come to expect. My biggest issue was this wasn't the main event, the last thing we saw on the show, because I thought it's the title match. This is your big match. And the other awkward thing is they kind of made it out like Eddie Kingston hadn't had a title shot already. like, oh, he's been waiting for this opportunity for 18 years, and it's like he had one, dude.
Well, yeah,
He
and that's
lost.
kind of where I'm at, where it just I couldn't get super seriously into it because it was just like about Eddie Kingston's mom, and we already have like mom storylines in AEW, so that was different. Like, and I get the whole story of why they brought it in and bringing up his mother into the story and stuff like that. It's just like I didn't feel a whole lot from it. You know what I mean? It didn't feel as genuine as even a lot of their back and forth has felt throughout this whole situation. So
No, I love the actual promo though. The content of it, I thought really, it told the story of like two longtime
the
friends
story
going
itself
at it.
is good. I just don't feel like they necessarily conveyed it very well. And even I don't know. I thought it, and I love both of them in their promos. This wasn't the one for me. Nonetheless, I think a lot of people probably did like it because it's Eddie and it's Mox. So
Yeah,
we got a solid promo after that though with Pac. He finally gave his return
my man.
via video. He says he's been gone for 7 months, but don't worry, he's been there before, lost and abandoned. They wanted him to crumble. And every day that passes, he gets better and stronger. So we are obviously looking at the return of Pac, hopefully. I don't know why else they would do these type of promos.
They better bring Pac in.
Well, bro, COVID is a crazy thing. You believe
You're
it
right.
or not. And the way that it's gone, I just hope that he is already on his way back if they're doing something like this. You know what I mean? Because I get the thought process that they probably would be just like us. Like, he needs to be back. Let's start promoting it. But what if something happens between now and then? I don't really want to do a start and stop with Pac. He's better than that. You know what I mean? So.
And I did love this promo, and I love the Eddie Kingston clips of, where's your British friend, and who's been here for you, blah blah blah. Like they might start something with Kingston.
I have no idea. My thoughts on Kingston are all over the place. I don't think Kingston is sticking around. I think the I Quit stipulation is legit to an extent. Like, I don't think he's actually quitting his job. I just don't think that they're going to utilize him much as a main top heel, and they don't want to use him as like a lower card heel, so he just won't get used so much. You know what I mean? And his story with being involved with the Lucha Brothers and the Butcher and the Blade was more or less like to fill the gap until Pac came back. But we shall see. I will not be surprised if I'm off on that one. That's why I was hesitant to even bring it up. But speaking of the Butcher and the Blade, Alex Marvez announces that next week we will see the Natural Nightmares get a match against the Butcher and the Blade. The Bunny says thanks for all the gifts, but his cards are maxed out, so apparently getting a closing to this QT Marshall thing, which is weird. This is exactly what my point of the Pac start and stop thing is. We have started and stopped with the Bunny and Brandy so much that when they get involved in new stuff, it does become confusing for me. I'm not saying I dislike the Bunny either, or Brandy with what she's been doing with Red Velvet. But because they were just together, and I haven't, and it's maybe on me as a viewer that I don't totally know why they've split up or what's going on. But
It was revealed in AEW Dark that like Eddie Kingston just brought her back into the fold, so she maxed out all the credit cards and left him.
Yeah, and like I get it, but still, it's kind of weird. And in a couple weeks, I'll be totally over it because I'll have gotten past it. But until then, and I'm glad we're getting a closure next week on Dynamite, at least. It might be strange that it's going on, but at least we're getting some closure. And I guess the reason I mention that is because we have Red Velvet in the next match against Nyla Rose. It's a pretty short match, but again, I didn't really know that Red Velvet was partnering with Brandy, or Brandy was maybe managing her. It's definitely more of a partnership. But I was intrigued to see that, and I loved what they did with Red Velvet in this match. She started off on a tear for like 30 seconds before getting dominated, which is basically all you're going to get against Nyla Rose anyway, so might as well get in, get out, and get done. So I thought honestly, Red Velvet looked really good for this being a squash.
Yeah, she did. Absolutely, I agree with that. Red Velvet, honestly, in all of her matches, which I think I haven't watched Dark, but on her Dynamite matches, which have been squashes, she's looked pretty good. I kind of want to watch Dark just to check out how she actually is.
Mm-hmm. And after the match, we get kind of what you alluded to happening earlier in terms of wrestlers coming down to blows with Hikaru Shida and Nyla Rose brawling a little bit, but it's expected.
It kind of just dissipated too. Like they were punching each other and then they just stopped.
Yeah, and I'm just ready for this match to an extent. Not even like super hype because it's just one we've known is coming. You know what I mean? So I'm ready to see what they do and where they go next. And per usual, if you've been following the All Elite podcast, your boy is calling a Tessa Blanchard debut after this women's match.
That'd be so sweet.
Every time, that's all I'm hoping for, and you never know. I'm glad that we could still have that hope. I'm glad she hasn't been signed up yet. So.
Yeah.
And, of course, we get a Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page hype video. So, good hype video, but this is a feud that deserves like a 5, 10, 50. You could do a 15-minute video, throw it on YouTube.
It was weird, dude. I thought it was funny because it was like a breakup video with a sad love song.
No, that's what I'm saying, bro, is you can do something like this that's fun and gimmicky, whatever, but they should be putting their time and effort into doing a legitimate, like, 15-minute hype video.
That'd be sweet.
Because this feud has been so great. And I don't have the time, I'm not going to lie, like, I would do it. But someone on the internet should do it. Put together a hype video at length for this feud because it's not a story you can tell in 5 minutes. Honestly, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not one that deserves a quick hype video before the match, 2 minutes, and that's it. And that's what it'll get on the show. Give me more than that before the show because this one deserves it. So.
Well, they are doing the hype show, I think, on Friday on TNT.
Yes, but I will also, with that being said, I will say that on those hype shows, they don't always, they hype like 3 matches, and this will probably be the one that gets that. It still doesn't come across the way that those hype videos go, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but nonetheless, I am excited for their situation on that show as well, because this build-up has been fun, so to see it broken down will be good. They ran down the Full Gear card, which, do we want to run it down now, AJ, or do we want to save it? Because we will at some point.
You know what? We should save it.
We'll do a Full Gear preview show. So let's talk about what they got scheduled for next week's Dynamite. We got Pentagon Jr. taking on Phoenix in their second match in AEW history. Well, their second matchup in AEW's company. So that should be a great match, solid match to get people tuned into Dynamite after the pay-per-view. And then the Butcher and the Blade versus the Natural Nightmare. So not a whole lot lined up for next week's Dynamite, but just those 2 matches, more so Penta versus Phoenix, has me pretty stoked for next week's show, I'm not going to lie.
Definitely. I don't know even why they're doing it again. I don't care either.
No, it's such a good match that they easily could do this probably like every week for a month, and they could do a 7-match series, and I would be all about it. We get a Darby Allin video package of him running over someone in a Cody Rhodes mask. AJ believes this could potentially be Darby running over himself in a Cody Rhodes mask.
I wasn't sure.
The Darby situation is fine. Some of these video packages hit, some of them don't. And, I mean, what else could you have done with him on this show? So,
yeah. It wasn't much, but it was Darby Allin, all right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's it. I think that, and I probably, it's just not stuff that necessarily appeals to me. I think that this does appeal to people because he has a huge fan base, and we're even Darby fans. It's just that this stuff doesn't always do it for me. His in-ring stuff does, but I know that this is for some people. Like, some people do enjoy these videos and the stuff he does. And it's very DIY, like, grungy metal band types, like, maybe not metal band, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like, grungy, do-it-yourself type thing. So, and even that aspect, I like it. So, shout out to Darby. Darby's great, and the way they built it up was strange though, because we have Cody and the Gun Club defeating the Dark Order. Relatively short match. We had what's his name, the other Gun, Austin Gunn picking up the victory for this group. I thought that was a little strange. Makes me feel like they have plans for Austin Gunn, which I guess I didn't ever really expect to be a thing, but it would make sense. He's been a focal point of AEW TV since the beginning of the pandemic because he's been the fan. You know what I mean? Him and his
he really
dad,
has.
In terms of, like, people know him. You have to know him in some way if you've watched the show. So if I don't love the idea because I didn't see a whole lot from him in this match or any match of Austin Gunn's where I'm like, he's a guy. But they've done that with a lot of guys where I didn't necessarily think that they were the guy, and turns out they were. So, what do you think of this?
I mean, he could be good. I thought it was cool to give him a little bit of a rub here because, like, we're immediately after this match going a whole different direction. So it wasn't like he stole the spotlight, really. It just got a little bit of a rub, and I thought that was good for him. They announced also in this match, the commentary did that the Gun Club is a part of the Natural Nightmare family, whatever. And so I guess they do have some kind of a plan for Austin Gunn because they're bringing him into Cody's fold.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because they already have a tag team in that group, so just expanding. But it does also make sense. He's kind of been a natural fit in the group, pun intended. But yeah, I think that you're right. It was a solid way to give him a little bit of a rub, help Austin Gunn look strong, despite never really doing a whole lot in AEW. Like, this is my first legitimate, memorable moment for this kid in the company at all, outside of his commentary runs, or not his commentary, his crowd runs, and a couple shots in some battle royals. So good for him, and probably some victories with his dad on Dark, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, like 9 of them, I think.
I'm ready for him if he attacks his dad, if he destroys Billy Gunn.
That'd be dude,
man.
yeah.
Give me that. I'll be with it. But yeah, I'm excited. Cool for Austin Gunn. Post-match, they have Cody Rhodes cut a little promo. Talks about how Darby doesn't think that TNT wants him to be the face of the network. But Cody says that they would love someone with his talent to be the face of the network. The problem is that Cody's the one standing in his way. And he also mentions the fact that Cody's the one who got him the opportunity in AEW. That's the reason that they had their previous match, was because no one in the company believed in him, so he had to have a match with him to prove it or something. It was a cool way he put it. It's very hard for me to explain it, though, in a natural way. Talks about how Darby wants the title. He wants to be the face of the company. He wants the ace belt. The problem is Darby is not the ace. I like that they utilize the terminology of ace in AEW once in a while to kind of get it over, I guess, to the fan base, and it makes it cool. It makes the belt seem very cool. I don't believe that it's the ace belt, but I also don't believe that it's a very much lower than the world title.
No, and I don't mind Cody calling it the ace belt, even though it's definitely not. And I don't mind him calling himself the ace, even though he's definitely not. I just like that he's doing it like he thinks he is, and that's fucking cool.
And at some point, you have to do a match, you know what I mean? You don't even have to put the titles on the line against each other because he can't become champion, but you would have to do a champion versus champion match if he continues this narrative that he's the ace champion and that's the ace belt. And I think that
you know what?
He's the guy to do that narrative, you know?
We forgot a piece of news. Cody Rhodes is officially on the trademark, or now no longer on the trademark docket for WWE. They've surrendered the Cody Rhodes name, so Cody can't challenge for the world title, but can Cody Rhodes?
Hey, I don't know, man. I hate that idea, but I do. I like my idea so much better. Even if it is title versus title, and that's how you get him a world title run, is by having him put over this championship so much that whoever is world champion is just pissed and is like, no, we have to do this. I have to become the champion of champions or something. But I could see them going potentially the route with Cody Rhodes, but I think that they're smarter than that. If they really want to get him a title shot, I think that they'll do something that makes more sense than something that corny. I do think that they will utilize that name.
I would hope so.
Now that it's an opportunity.
No, I do too.
It makes no sense not to. And it makes it even better that people think that that's the way they would go about it. So it almost adds to why he should use the name, you know what I mean? Because people think he's going to be that shady, and that's such a WWE thing to do. So that's why I don't think it would happen. But I also get, again, the WWE PTSD. So they set it up good, though. Darby versus Cody honestly means a little bit more off of that promo, just because I feel like that belt means a little bit more off of that promo. We had talked about how it would have been nice for them to add another guy to this match. I'm not so mad about it anymore. Me neither. We could talk more about that, I guess, when we run down the card and talk about the pay-per-view. Probably, when do you want to do that, AJ? You want to do it tomorrow? Not tomorrow. Let's do it Saturday.
All right.
Probably Saturday afternoon. We'll do it Saturday noon Eastern? Saturday 2 Eastern. Which one?
2 Eastern.
2 Eastern. You guys will catch us for our AEW Full Gear pre-show, hype show, bonanza. Maybe we'll play a little bit of what do we talk about on here? Fire Pro, AJ.
Fire Pro, or Fall Guys,
play a little
or
Fire
whatever.
Pro. Talk about a little bit of pay-per-view main events situation coming up. I'm excited for the pay-per-view. Honestly, I'm so excited.
I am too.
I get so excited for AEW pay-per-views. it's become my favorite time of the year. The only bummer I have about this one is it takes me back to last year when I was a part of the fan situation. What was it called? StarCast and everything ahead of Full Gear last year. Not so much this year, but still get to enjoy the situation from home. But COVID really knocked a couple things into whack. But nonetheless, I'm so excited for this pay-per-view. They have some really solid matchups that I've been excited for a long time. We're finally getting some payoff on those. They did a solid job building up to it with this go-home show yesterday. Is there anything else we forgot to cover? We talked about Cody Rhodes getting his name back finally.
Are we doing a post show on Full Gear, or are we doing that Sunday?
We will, dude. We do it. We do it every time. So we'll do it right after the show. We'll do it twice on Saturday. I'm free.
All right.
We will do that. And yeah, AJ, go ahead, let them know where they can find you, and we will get out of here.
You can follow me on Twitter at BigMatchAJ, and you can follow me on Instagram at AJTheFitzy.
And as always, you can follow the podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/AllElitePod. We are on Instagram at AllEliteEverything. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/AllElitePodcast. If you're watching us there, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother. You can find us on Twitter at AllElitePodcast. You can find me on Twitter at AllEliteAndy. I'm on Instagram at Andrew Kazir. Thank you guys for continuing to follow us, support us, and hey, we'll see you guys on Saturday to talk about Full Gear.